Hello, I'm Craig and welcome to another episode of Football Kit Memories. Today I meet another host from BBC Scotland's View From the Terrace, Joel Sked. During the show, Joel talks to me about his life as a journalist, covering Hearts for the Scotsman, and we find out why Gretna boys aren't to be messed with. Later I asked Joel to pick out 3 of his favourite football shirts and tell me a little bit about what they mean to him. There's a Hummel home shirt from a turbulent season at Hearts, a Fiorentina favourite from a scandal-ridden Serie A season, and then it's the Blue Brazil of Cowdenbeath. You can listen to this and other episodes of Football Kit Memories on all major audio platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Please do subscribe, share, and above all, enjoy the podcast. Okay, so today on the podcast, I'm delighted to be joined by A View From the Terrace's Joel Sked. How you doing, Joel?
Yes, good. Thanks for inviting me on, Craig. How's it going?
Mate, very well. Thanks so much for coming on, making the time. Really excited to speak to you.
No worries. I enjoy talking about football and shirts.
Yes. So, mate, as you know, I spoke to your co-host from View From the Terrace, Craig Telfer, a few weeks ago, and he spoke to me a lot about how you guys took the podcast format of the Terrace and put that on TV. One of the things I did ask him that I wanted to get your perspective on, obviously going from a podcast to TV, there's a huge amount of increased exposure, I guess, for you. How's that been for you?
Exposure as in just like kind of more eyes?
Yeah, people know who you are more, know what you look like, kind of interacting with you on social, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind interacting with people. I would when I was at high school, I'd probably say I was more introverted than extroverted. But no, right. I don't mind. I don't mind conversing with people on social media or people out and about. I've not had any. I think the only time I've had negative feedback in person. Oh, so there's two occasions. One was in a pub after a Hearts game, and some guy just walked past and it wasn't really negative. He was just like, why the fuck do you not speak about Craig Levein and getting him out of Hearts? But he just said it as he walked past, and then so I was like, okay. And then another is actually a guy I know. I was with a mate before a Hibs Kilmarnock game. We were going to sit in the Kilmarnock end, but I went to a pub, and a guy actually know from my hometown, an older guy. He came in, and so me, my mate, and my mate's dad were sat around the table. He just walked over, and he was chatting because he knew all of us, and he was chatting. And then he just turned and he was like, "Yeah, I think the show's terrible." And I was like, "Okay, that's completely fine." It was just these kind of the bluntness of it was interesting. But you know what, people. While I'm not a massive fan of that guy in particular, people are allowed to dislike the show. So people are allowed to dislike things. So when people are negative or critical online, whether it's about me or it's about the show, that's fine. People are allowed to dislike me or dislike the show. I've been fortunate that growing up at school, me and my group of mates, all we did was we never gave each other a lot of praise. It was more like focusing on each other's faults, or anytime someone made a mistake, then bang, then that's it. You're getting hounded for it. So I've when it comes to being hounded or criticised, it is honestly water off a duck's back. So I know some people don't in general, but I find it really easy to ignore or even just laugh at some of the criticism, exposure wise. But no, it's been absolutely brilliant. It's been just really fun. I mean, I've had drinks bought for me at games before. I even got recognised. I mean, my missus and I went around travelling around Europe a couple of years ago, and we went to a festival in Bilbao. And before we got on the plane, she was like, "If you get recognised, it's unbelievable." She was raging, and we'd just been at Bilbao Festival and went to the Guggenheim, and I was in the Guggenheim, and someone shouted out my name. Wow. And came across and had a chat, and I was sleep deprived and very hungover, so just like I felt like a zombie. But that was probably the most surreal moment.
In the Guggenheim as well. I've been to that town. I've been to the Guggenheim as well, actually. It's a nice place, isn't it? Great place for football too.
Yeah, lovely stadium.
So Joel, you were doing the Terrace Podcast before you went on TV, and I was a big fan of the Terrace Podcast too. How long had that been going?
The dates are all over the place with this. So Craig Fowler set it up in university. Went to Edinburgh Napier University, so he set it up with I think a couple from his class. Then it progressed to him, Alan Temple, who is a journalist, an excellent journalist, and Kenny Miller, who was formerly a journalist but now working for Hibs. So the three of them, three very talented and knowledgeable guys, they did the podcast regularly, and then I think just because of work commitments, both Kenny Miller and Alan Temple were I think they couldn't commit to it. Around maybe a year before they left, or a few months before, I bumped into Craig Fowler, and not sure how many listeners will be familiar with a club in Edinburgh. It's had so many different names, but everyone knows it as Cav. So basically, it's like on a Sunday. It used to be a students' like a students' night, and it's over different floors, had different rooms for different genres of music, right. And he walked past me, and I just didn't shout his name because I wasn't sure if 100% sure his name, but I shouted his username on a Hearts forum that I kind of recognise him from, but I can't remember how I knew it was him. So yeah, it was me, massive geek, shouting his username, and then we just started chatting. So he invited me onto one of the podcasts, and then when Alan and Kenny left, he asked me and his good mate Tony Anderson to jump on, and I think that was, again, my dates are terrible, maybe 2011, maybe a wee bit later. So it was the three of us in Craig's flat in, I always say Sight Hill, but it's not, it was Forester Park in Edinburgh, and it was an interesting experience because now we've got decent mics. Back then we had these mics and you had to hold them in a certain position to avoid some crackle. So they had big wires coming out of them. And so you for an hour, you just couldn't move your arm and just stay still and speak into it. So we've come a long way. So I was one of the first to get involved in the podcast in its most recent kind of incarnation. Yeah. And it's just kind of added from there. So others came on board afterwards, like Craig Telfer and Sean as well, who's also on A View from the Terrace.
So there are no overnight successes then? You've been doing that for years and years, that format, and
that's it. I even just trying to think. So I would have never thought we'd got to this point. Certainly myself, on a personal level, I did not think I would get onto a TV show and be able to be allowed to speak or try and attempt to speak on TV. So I still have massive imposter syndrome every Wednesday when we record, and every Friday when it goes out on the BBC. But no, Craig has. If there's anyone else, if there's someone, who deserves. Who's kind of deserved that podcast going into a TV show, it's Craig, because he puts in so much work and into the podcast on top of so many other things. It's just still surreal because I remember Fowler messaging me. So Fowler and I actually did pilots, separate pilots for the BBC Scotland when they wanted to bring a sports show on before A View from the Terrace. So he did it with, I think, Sunset and Vine, who were behind the BT Sports coverage of Scottish football. He did one there. I think he did a social media thing, and I did it was like a question time, but of sport. It was so bizarre. So I got asked to go along. So I was with Gemma Faye, the ex-Scotland women's goalkeeper, Michael Stewart, and a guy from Braehead Clan, I think. I was so far out of my depth. See if the footage got unearthed. If people thought I talked a lot of shit and all over the place on the TV show and the podcast, then they've not seen anything yet. I remember coming out of it because they were asking, it was sport rather than football. So I remember getting asked a question about Caster Semenya. And I was like, no idea. So I came out, and the guy who was kind of producing it, he was just like, you got into it a bit in the towards the end, and I was like, yeah, that's a kind way of putting it. So we were involved in these two pilots, and then Craig got a message from the BBC the BBC, and I went along to the meeting with Studio Something, who are the kind of the company that produce it. Having just got back from Malta, and it still didn't hit home at that point that we're trying to get a TV show. I kind of just went along just to see what was being said. So definitely not an overnight success. A lot of hard work, and then just a lot of surreal moments.
Yeah, no, fair play, mate. So your background is in sports journalism proper, right?
Yeah, so I did a 4-year journalism course at Edinburgh Napier. So I think it was 2 years below Craig Fowler at university.
And you write for the Scotsman and a few other publications.
Yeah, I am. I'm actually not sure what my job title is, to be honest. Content churner could be one, but I think we'll go for digital sports writer and for the Scotsman and Even News. I've done that. I kind of started as freelance, and a few years ago. Right. It took me a long time to get. I was a local journalist for my local paper, the East Lothian Courier, when I lived in Harrington in East Lothian. I did that for 18 months and absolutely hated it. Went to South America for the 2014 World Cup. Came back, and I'd been working in a bank, and then thankfully Fowler was working at the Scotsman, and I managed to get in there to do work experience, and then kind of just built up. So now I am not quite in there with the bricks, but yeah, that's what I've been doing for certainly permanently for the last 2 or 3 years.
Nice. So was kind of like sports journalism or football journalism something you always wanted to do?
I always wanted to be an actual footballer, but my
Didn't we all just
Yeah, but it wasn't good enough. Mindset was nowhere near strong enough to pursue that at all. So I think it was probably around fourth year at school that I realised that I really enjoyed reading about football specifically, and I thought that'd be something that'd be fun. I'd always loved football, so to be involved in football would be great. So it was it kind of built from there. And when I went to university, I think a few of the lecturers rolled their eyes when you kind of get into your first class and you ask what you want to be. And when I'd just like to write about football. I think it's the case. But even back then, it was just like it was a lot of rolling of the eyes. But no, when I was going through university, I had very little interest in anything other than just wanting to write about football.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit before about kind of interactions with like fans and people like on social. I was just wondering, like, have you ever had any kind of like negative or really positive interactions with like people involved at the club? So players or managers, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the vast majority has been positive. I can't think of only negative I can think of is recently was, but it was I think it was. Actually, there's been a few negative things when I actually think about it. But I'll get on to it. No, positives. There's I think you're always wary about clubs and players and managers, and as a fan, you get a view of them and think, oh, they probably don't seem like the nicest people, and then there's a kind of stereotypical view of footballers. But no, everyone, the vast majority are so nice, so welcoming. Clubs even get a bad rap, but Hearts are often very helpful with me. Hibs are very helpful. They're the two teams I have dealt with the most. Just few of you from the Terrace, the lower league teams are like so accommodating. So I've not got many bad stories. There's two people within Scottish football, I don't think they're in Scottish football now, have taken something I've written to task, and looking back on it now, it's one of those where I can kind of see where they're coming from. That was stuff I'd written where I was probably too unprofessional, too much of a fan, and trying to be funny and express myself in a way that was degrading, was maybe too strong a word, but overly critical in the way I put across a point where an ex-midfielder in the Scottish Premiership sent me a message on Instagram. I kind of defended myself, but every now and then I think back to it, and I probably should go back and apologise. And then a former coach wasn't happy with something I said. What I said was, basically that a player in a team showed himself to be the alpha rather than the coach who was looking to get the job. And I think I kind of knew what I was meaning, but I just didn't put across that well. So I think football managers, the ones I've dealt with, football players and managers, are very fair. And that's something that when I was certainly coming through university, I was always quite, you'd always kind of be nervous or scared, like approaching clubs, approaching managers, approaching players. And then when you actually speak to them on a regular basis, they're actually, there's not a lot to be scared about.
Yeah, well, I guess it's all part of being a journalist. I guess you've got to build a good reputation and a good relationship and stuff. It must be really tough to kind of balance the line between telling the truth, but also wanting to maintain that relationship with the club and the player as well. And if a club or a player is doing exceptionally badly, it must be hard for you to express that.
Yes, that is very, very difficult, because I always find that it's, even on a weekly basis, so I'd cover Hearts games usually, and I have to do the player ratings.
Yeah.
So it's that fine line. So we put in what each of the ratings represents: very poor, abysmal, excellent, one of the best performances you've ever seen, etc., etc. I'm always conscious, because you don't want to absolutely hammer a player who you might actually have to speak to.
Yeah.
And then but also you have to be as truthful as possible, because if fans are not reading and thinking, well, what is the point of this? It's just redundant him writing anything, because it's just going to be positive and it's not going to tell the truth. So it's a fine line. And one, I've got to admit, as I still view myself as a fan first before the journal, I'll use a loose term, journalist, which probably shouldn't be the case, but it's I just find it hard to separate from being a fan. So I'm still treading that line every week, and I think I'm more wary, especially with my written stuff. I'm more wary of the stuff I write and kind of second guess myself, which is probably better than what I was doing kind of prior. And just like it's just about, I think you just have to be more careful about the way you express your point. And then it's bringing it back to View from the Terrace. Difficult aspect of that is I'm on there as a fan rather than a football journalist. So then it's I've said a few things on there that I think, that could get me, that could rub up people the wrong way and cause an issue further down the line. Which is still the case, but it's difficult, and it's something that I certainly on a personal level I'm still working through on a weekly basis.
Yeah, it's so complex, Joel. It's really interesting. So look, I've got one more question for you before we talk about your football shirt choices.
Cool.
Anybody that follows you on Twitter knows that you're a big fan of Tennent's Lager. Why do you love it so much?
It's, you know what? I don't think anyone's ever asked me why. People just either agree with me or say it is cat piss. But I think there's probably an aspect that's the lager I've grown up with, because that's the. Remember when I'd turning legal age and going to the pub? That was the pint that we drank. That was the going on. We're going to come on to one of my strips, going on away days with my mate to Cowdenbeath and his dad, and it would always be cans of Tennent's. So I think it's just because it's probably my first real association with lager. I remember Beck's and Foster's making me very, very sick as a young teenager. So I think the Tennent's probably the first lager I've had a positive association with, and now it's just I just couldn't drink. If going on a away day, I just couldn't drink anything other than a can of Tennent's. It's the colour. It's I enjoy the taste, the fizziness of it. I just really, really like it.
Yeah, do you know what? I wish we could get more of it down here. I love it when I'm up there, but you can never get it down here. It's just a bit of a shame. It's got that weird association as well, I think, elsewhere of super Tennent's.
Yeah, in Italy, it's absolutely massive in Italy. But I've had super tenants taste it before, and I'm not that big a tenants fan to go to those measures.
You don't need to make it super; it's good enough on its own, kind of.
Yeah, no, it's like the branding as well. The branding I still find is so iconic. The color of it as well, and it's just. Should I use the word tradition? But it's just something I've just drank since for over 10 years and never got sick of it, despite the numerous hangovers it's caused me.
So, mate, let's talk about some football shirts. The first generic question I ask everybody is, what do football shirts mean to you?
The word that I probably associate with football shirts is nostalgia. Even into my 30s, they still bring out the kid in me. Yeah. If I'm out running or out and about around town and clock someone wearing a football top, it's just nice. I wouldn't say it brightens up my day, but I'll think when I see it, I'll think about that team. Try to work out work out the season it's from, and then there's that Twitter account, Shirt Spotter, which I just think it's just such a. I always think of that Twitter account when I see a football shirt out and about, and every now and then it comes up on my timeline. It's like I don't know, a Treviso shirt somewhere in London, and it just kind of makes me smile. It's almost like a human version of Where's Wally, and especially like that degree of satisfaction when you spot a football top, especially when it's a niche one. I mean, I loved football tops as a younger when I was younger, and going into various shops. Like I think back in the day, it was like was it All Sport and like Olympic Sports, I think, and you like raking through the rails. And even now, especially on holiday, you go into markets and sports shops in Spain or Italy, wherever, and seeing the shirts, and it kind of just provokes that kind of like child like excitement, and me moving along the rails and kind of just going oohing and ahhing. I mean, it wasn't until this lockdown. I can't remember the last time I'd bought a football shirt. It'd been years. Yeah, because it'd always been. I'd never bought a recent one just because the price. I never thought I was. Just wasn't willing to pay that price of a new football shirt, and then like the nostalgic ones that I would want are like hundreds of pounds. But I don't know what was, if it was just seeing mates do it and watched a couple of things on YouTube and like following different accounts like yourself, the Kits Buyer, and then I was like, I've started adding to my collection recently again. It's exciting. And the shirt I'm wearing just now, I actually spent £60 on this, and probably the most expensive I've spent on a shirt, just because it's one of my favourite all-time shirts, and I gave it away when I was when I was South America in 2014. I've been on the hunt for one ever since. Right, well, look, there's a nice segue. Let's talk about it, mate. So it's the Heart of Midlothian Home from 2005-2006 by Hummel. Yes, it is. I feel like I use this word too much, but it is iconic, certainly for me, because it's Hummel. I think Hummel make great shirts. Yeah, I just love what would you call the kind of chevrons? The chevrons, the chevrons down the side. I really like the maroon of the color, and there's not too much white on it. It's just there's just a lot of maroon. The Yukio Bank is sponsor, and it is. It's obviously from a season that means a lot to me as a Hearts fan. It was the season we finished second, but I'm trying to think of a word to do that season justice. Crazy. Yeah, crazy roller coaster. These words like kind of just even ramped up even more. It was a season the first full season under Vladimir Romanov. We pumped in a lot of money, obviously split the old firm, but it was one of those what if seasons, because obviously we had a fantastic start to this season. We were top of the league, unbeaten in I always forget the number, but it was double figures. And then we sack George Burley.
Yeah.
And it just kind of spiraled from there, but it still evokes so many good memories just because, especially that run at the start of the season, it seemed like every game we played, the sun was shining, and we just blew teams away in the opening encounters with players who really shouldn't be playing for Hearts, just because there's no chance we'll ever be able to afford the likes of like Takis Fisas, Edgaras Shankauskas. Before they've obviously got Rudy Scatchell, and we kept players like homegrown talents like Craig Gordon and Andy Webster. It was just this perfect blend of talent where it still leaves you thinking, could this team have won the league? Perhaps, but
I think it should have, Joel. I think it should have won the league, right? Surely.
I think it was a difficult one just because the squad was so small. So I always forget that we're still playing at the start of the season like players like Jamie McAllister and Stephen Simmons, who were kind of remnants of, let's say, the mediocrity from the previous season.
Jobbers,
but
you'd call them.
Yes. But I think we could have won the league if the investment was smarter, and obviously if we didn't sack the manager and kind of allowed him to manage, and then because when it got to January, we signed a whole new team.
Yeah,
with very few making an impact. We basically signed a whole new team, and you always think, okay, if we use that money more sensibly with George Burley at the helm, what could have been? But it gave that season. You can think about it as what could have been, but we produced so many great performances, so many great moments. We obviously won the cup. We split the Old Firm, beating Aberdeen 1-0 to clinch Champions League qualifying football, beating Celtic at Tynecastle Park 3-0, beating Rangers 1-0 earlier in the season, and the amount of times we hammered Hibs as well. So there was just so many good memories.
Yeah. Do you know what I was going to ask you? You had a season like that, which was crazy, and you won the cup and stuff. And I guess like all of that happened because of the owner putting in all the money, Romanov. Mm-hmm. Which a lot of things have happened to Hearts in the last few years. Like you've gone down twice, right? And it's taken a while for the club to get stable again. Would you still keep that season? Do you know what I mean? Like, would you rather it hadn't happened like that, or was it worth it? I guess is my question.
Oh, worth it. Yeah, I would live it all over again. I would absolutely live it all over again. Yeah. What's the point in having being stable and having mediocre seasons when you can just live it up for it's like winning the lottery, and just rather than just looking after yourself for the rest of your life, just going mental for a few years and just just really enjoying yourself. So yeah, it's always, if I was ever to write a book, I would love to write a book about the Romanov era.
God, how thick would the book be? Like, so
yeah,
much
exactly. It'd be a tome. I'd probably have to wait until Romanov perhaps passed away to do it. Just because I think a lot of people would be unwilling to speak about it until he just wouldn't say fear of retribution, but there was obviously some interesting characters. Involved, but generally wouldn't swap it for the world, because the alternative from Romanov would have been very likelihood that we'd be playing at Murrayfield, and I actually
good point. Yeah,
almost scared to think where we would have been.
Yeah. Okay, mate. Let's move on. We're going to Florence. We're going to talk about Fiorentina's home shirt in same season, 2005-2006. This one's made by Lotto.
Yes, so this isn't my favourite. We'll stick with this shirt. So this is the first Fiorentina shirt I bought, and it goes back to the Gazzetta days. My dad's team was AC Milan, so right. He was a massive fan of Gazzetta, and it would always be on at the weekend. Whether I would actually sit down, I was at the age where probably my attention span wasn't great, and I would rather be outside in the garden playing football than watching Italian football.
Yeah,
but it was always the league that I that I enjoyed from the continent, and always it was Batty and I think it was more his exploits on European football, seeing him against Man United, seeing him against Arsenal, and his celebration, the shirt as well. So it always that all stayed with me, and I can't remember what TV channel or broadcaster had Italian football, and it was around that time Italian football was back. I think it was back on, and I just started watching Italian football again, especially Fiorentina, and then, as is the way with many kids and who find an affiliation with a team that are out with the UK, Football Manager. I would go them on Football Manager, and that kind of that connection started from there.
Yeah.
2005, 2006, I think the team had Luca Toni, who was at one point one of my favourite players in world football. Him and Adrian Mutu up front. So going with him in Football Manager, it just made me want to buy a Fiorentina shirt. And football, there's a shop in Edinburgh. It's no longer there yet. The company's still going. There's got premises elsewhere. It's called Football Nation. They were one of the few places that actually you could go into a place and look at shirts that weren't just UK, so from around Europe. And so it would be a yearly thing from 2005, 2006 up until probably the early kind of 2012, 2013, I think was the last Fiorentina shirt I bought, but it would be a yearly thing where I would buy.
Oh, wow, you have a few then?
Yeah, I have quite a few. So from the 2005, 2006 season, I think I've got the home one and the away one, and the away one's got look at so Tony 30 on the back.
Wow, okay.
So it's very the lettering is and the numbering is very faded now. So yeah, I've got about half a dozen, perhaps more Fiorentina shirts. My favourite one, which I still wear quite often from that spell, was 2007, 2008. But 05, 06 was the first time I really got back into Italian football, really started to watch Fiorentina quite regularly, and obviously play them on Football Manager.
Yeah.
And before I came on this, I was looking at Fiorentina shirts in the past, because obviously they've got so many iconic shirts.
Yeah, massively.
Going back to Batty, but the previous season they've got a cracking Adidas one.
Okay.
The season before the Lotto one, they had a really nice Adidas one, which I was a year out, because I think I've looked for it quite a few places, but I just never came. So it was Lotto, Joma, and Lecoq Sportif. So not the most not most glittering of manufacturers, but just the colours of Fiorentina, and it is my it's on my bucket list is to go to the Artemio Franchi. I know there's been talks of upgrading it, but the Florence and Artemio Franchi is very high on the bucket list.
Yeah, me too. Actually, I've not been to the stadium. I've been to the city, but I didn't get a chance to go one day, mate. So, from the cradle of the Renaissance to the Kingdom of Fife, mate. Cowdenbeath. Nice link. 2009, 2010 by Area.
Yeah, so the strip, I don't have any it doesn't wow me, but it is from the season that they won promotion to, I think it was to the off the top of my head, from the promotion from the through the playoffs to the championship. I was under Danny Lennon, and I was actually there that day when they did win promotion at Brecon.
Right.
One thing was 3-0. And my mate is my best mate. He's a Cowdenbeath fan. So me, him, and his dad went up, and we were actually on the pitch afterwards celebrating. And the reason I chose Cowdenbeath is just Cowdenbeath were a team where I really enjoyed the experience of actually going to the football. So with Hearts, it was always about other than when my dad took me in that kind of excitement as a child, when I got my first season ticket in 04, 05, and it was very much like go to the game and you want to see your team win. It was all just about winning. Whereas with Cowdenbeath, because it wasn't the team of support, it was about the organising the train, getting cans for the train, going on the train, going to these places that I would never go to if it wasn't for football. So Brecon, Elgin, Peterhead, not sure, it's like Gretna as well. Going to Gretna and having to run away from a large group of youths who wanted to do physical harm to us.
In Gretna?
Because in Gretna, it was a bizarre experience. It was before, I think it was around the time they must have just started to get their money pumped in, and there was, I think it was five of us down. So me, three mates, and my mate's dad, and they were just hanging about over the side of the stadium and just shouting. And so mates were just like kind of just shouting back. And then by full time, there's just this big group outside, and it was just like head down, get into the social club and phone a taxi. It was quite an experience. But no, it's like these away days where it was just about the day itself rather than just the football.
Yeah, okay.
And so following like going to Cowdenbeath games, which I did regularly if wasn't able to get the Hearts game, if they were playing away, or if they were playing on a Sunday, I would go to the Cowdenbeath game, and it was always it was great fun to look forward to, because it was about the day rather than just the football.
Right. And do you know why they're called the Blue Brazil?
Oh, I really should know this answer. But I don't, and I'll probably kick myself if it comes to. I'm kicking myself that I don't know the answer to this question.
It seems a bit ambiguous, to be honest. I did a bit of research, and there's no. I mean, obviously, like it's like an ironic joke, but it doesn't seem to be like a specific reason that I can find for it. That's why I asked, kind of thing. Thought you might know.
I will. Obviously, it's not great for the podcast, but I'll ask my friend, and I'll get back to you and let you know if you can give me any concrete information as to why they're called the Blue Brazil.
Nice, we'll find out. So, mate, that's three great choices. Thanks so much for talking to me. It's fantastic.
No, this has been a pleasure. It's been great to chat to you, Craig. Thanks for having me on.
No worries, man. So, what should people look out for? They need to tune into A View from the Terrace.
Yes, I think we're moved to 11 p.m. now on BBC Scotland, but you can get on iPlayer for up to 30 days. I'm on Twitter at Sked21. You might see some of my writing if I'm proud enough to put it on social media. So yeah, A View from the Terrace, and just regular goings on at the Terrace Podcast as well.
Fantastic, mate. Right, thanks so much for doing it, Joel, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, Craig. Thank you.
So there you have it. A massive thanks to Joel for sharing his football kit memories with me. Joel got in touch with his friend Murray about the origins of the nickname, the Blue Brazil. Apparently there are a few schools of thought on this, but his favourite was a story from the early 90s where Cowdenbeath somehow went for about 2 years without winning at home. During one game, the team played a first, then a second, a third, and finally a fourth pass together without losing possession. A fan is alleged to have stood up and congratulate the team on this rare moment of Latin tiki-taka with the immortal line, "Come on the Blue Brazil." I have to say, I quite like that story. Remember, you can follow me and my own shirt collection on Instagram, or get in touch via Twitter or email. Make sure you follow Joel too, tune into the Terrace Podcast, and catch A View from the Terrace on the iPlayer. The music was produced by Ava Led. You can get links to that in the podcast notes. And other than that, I guess that's it. Until next time, I'll see you later.